Hello, everyone. Today we are having one of the elitist speaker, that is Mr. Subramanian Chidambaram. In one line, a person who is consistent and clear. To give a glimpse, he started as a trainee in a Siemens and moved on to the head of strategy. He also have taken the MBA from M. Lucknow, which scaled his career further. Again, he has not stopped. He is almost in the verge of completing his PhD. And that also very interesting. He is very clear that C-suite level strategy should not be only in the boardroom. It has to be more practical, more pragmatic, yet more logical. And on one line, he said, I could see leaders making a lot of mistakes. This is the curiosity with which he has started his PhD thesis. And we are all hoping to read his articles. He has already published a book on Shankaram, one of the amazing books. He's a strong proponent of Indian knowledge system. With all due respects, and I am very happy that I could get Subramanian Chidambaram online. Hope you're all good.
All good. Really happy for this opportunity to be speaking to you. It's always a pleasure.
Out of curiosity, I want to know that you started in Siemens, and I don't see a larger gap in terms of timeline. You moved on to head of strategy. What is the success mantra of yours?
That nice question. Something that I have been contemplating, retrospecting over time. When I joined Siemens, I think the key thing inside me was that, okay, you are an engineer, which is there. Okay. So you really want to be the technical expert and the technical wizard and put all your theory that you learned in college into practice. So that's what urged me to get into an engineering and technical firm like Siemens, because I had done my electrical engineering. And so that was the big high at that point of time. When I spent about 3 years in Siemens, it was a great learning curve. The first exposure to what a corporate actually means, the first job. So all that, it's like a big learning journey. But very soon I realized that uh, for growth in the organization, or for us to uh, grow up in terms of understanding the business, that organic growth is probably not enough. Because the first 3 years that I was there in Siemens, I was largely still operating in my limited space in which I was working, which was around material planning, order processing, the shop floor related stuff. And it was one of the businesses of Siemens. So I was working in one of the factories of one of the businesses of Siemens in India. So my exposure to the business was also that. Moving into the MBA space gave me a completely different perspective. I would say it was a step change. And that is something that I really wanted at that point of time, because after a point of time, as typically we would say, the learning curve keeps happening, especially in the initial years, it's quite steep. But after some time, when it begins to start plateauing, is when you start really figuring out what next. So luckily, I'm somebody who's always interested in academics. So I think that helped me to switch again from a job back into academics and say that, okay, now let me get back to the the classroom and the assignments and the teachers. And that, I would say, gave me a step change into the next, I can call it the S curve in our typical corporate language. It gave me that break.
Really, since you mentioned about academics, what is the one or two aspects you would give as an advisor? These are something you have to do during your MBA period, particularly, or there are certain two or three things you should not do during your MBA period.
Yeah. Again, so this is something I harp on a lot, even as I visit B schools, I keep telling them that, of course, nowadays we have a lot of programs. You have 1 year programs, 2 year programs offered by different, even the premium B schools. What I tell them is that whatever time they're spending in the B school is actually a luxury they will never get back again. When they go back to the corporate world, they are back into a lot of stuff which will not give them that kind of a bandwidth. to think on various things purely from a thought process. While in B school, you're getting that time completely, especially if it's a 2 year program, you get a lot more time where you are completely just contemplating, introspecting, thinking, pondering over things without the compulsion to start delivering something or show results. So I suggest to students to really use that time to step back from whatever you have been doing, rethink for yourself what is it that you really want to do. Thinking about the purpose, right? What is it that we really are interested in? I think this is the best time, provided we don't fill our calendars with all sorts of club activities and committee activities, which is what typically students do. Taking out some time in these 2 years or 1 year to really think about one's own strengths, one's own areas of passion, and then trying to chart your next years around that. I think the MBA time really helps. The MBA ambience really helps. You get to interact also with a lot of your peers who might be thinking similarly, who might be thinking differently. So a lot of churning happens in those 1 to 2 years, which me it has always been a beneficial.
Lovely. I think these are golden words which we can't get in textbooks. So I have to ask openly. And since you mentioned trying to identify the triad of passion, purpose, and profession.
Yeah.
Right now, you could see a lot of entrepreneurs getting on what they call startups on the go.
Yeah.
I could see your profile that you are in the CII Industry Academia interface also. So, what is that gap you could feel or see from a classroom to getting to boardroom?
Oh.
What is that baby steps one should take so that the boardroom is achieved?
Yeah. But that's a very relevant question. What I've realized, is that while the end goal is definitely important, and as you said, whether one wants to be the head of a business or one wants to start one's own organization and lead that into a big way, in a big way, or one wants to develop more expertise in a particular area and be an expert in that area. So that is individual choice where they want to go as an end destination. What I've realized is the steps towards that are more tangible because the aspiration is there, but you don't know what to do with that aspiration. It is at some distant point of time, and that itself cannot give enough clarity to decide what to do now. So, making the best use of what do I do now, right, to go on the path or continue on that path, what I have realized is trying for the best opportunity. Make the best use of what opportunity you get. Even before that, what I would say is first try for the best opportunity. Okay. So don't settle for something mediocre or it's okay, right? If you believe that you have that capability to get into a different league, or even if you don't believe, you should still put a fight. Effort, right? Put an effort to say that when I say the best opportunity, it could be in terms of one of the best organizations, one of the best brands, one of the best ecosystems, or one of the best leaders you can get to work with. Criteria could be any, but it's basically trying to aim for getting into a best league. Right? So put an effort towards that and make good amount of efforts towards that because those kind of opportunities come very rare. So always keeping an eye on those opportunities. And if those opportunities do not come for any chance because they may or may not show up at the right moment, that's perfectly fine. Then you take the second best opportunity that you get. But always keep an eye on the good opportunities and say, okay, these are the best brands I want to work with. Anytime those opportunities arise, we must be ready, to grab those opportunities. So first is about putting effort for the best opportunity. And second is keeping oneself capable to capture those opportunities. That I think is something that we generally overlook. To say that we generally try to get into a mode to say that I did not or I couldn't make to that opportunity or I did not get that. But very rarely do we think that did I make myself capable enough to get that opportunity? That to me is a very big point in itself because that will always keep you on the go. So every day in your job, you will constantly think, how can I be better? What can I learn more? What is the additional skill set that I need to develop? what are the gaps I have, and that is like a daily process. Once that mindset comes into the individual, then actually, while even the destination or aspiration is there as a motivation, what you are more interested is in the baby steps. Everyday learning is what gives you more joy, because that is what is real, right? That is here and now, that is more tangible. So that to me is the biggest motivator, to say that, okay, now tomorrow, what is it that I'm going to learn new? What am I going to be better in? What additional capability have I developed? And investing time into that, thinking about spending some time to say that what kind of capabilities do I need to build? That I think is very, very important for the individual. What happens is, by continuously doing this, when the right opportunity comes, you become capable or more than capable, to grab that opportunity. And you can put up a real good fight. Even if due to some reason that opportunity seems to be going elsewhere, you can put up a really good fight towards getting that opportunity if you have this capability or the skill set. And then after some years is when you look back, is when you see that, oh, this is what I have achieved, right? But when you're doing those baby steps, that is not there in your mind. What is there in your mind is only that the next baby step is more interesting to me, more exciting to me. So let me get to that. So I would always tell people that make your day to day learning or your baby steps more exciting and interesting. That is what will keep you going while your destination is still in sight. That is important. But what is important are the baby steps.
So sweet. And I could see from your growth path itself, since you have started from an entry level and moved on, I'm sure you will further grow because that's part of the evolution. What is the best feedback you have received?
There has been a lot of feedback, and feedback is something I really value, because in my life, especially in my profession, the feedbacks have played a very big role. Let me fast forward a few years, right? Let me go into especially the space of, in during my initial days in Siemens, there has been a lot of feedback around, determination, about remaining focused on certain things. All of those things were there. But also certain feedback comes in the form of, certain times it could be harsh, harsh realities being shown to you just as a mirror, or it could be a proper constructive feedback to help you on your improvement. In many cases, during my Siemens days, there have been great colleagues who have shown the mirror and said, this is not acceptable. This is what you seem to be doing. This is not the way, in certain cases at that moment, you might feel really bad to say that, this is not what I wanted or what I'm feeling good about. But in later years, you feel good about it. In McKinsey is when actually this process of feedback became a bit more structured in my head. Because as a part of consulting, consulting, I worked with some of the best talents within McKinsey also, who were really good, well known or known for their people management, the way they dealt with teams, etc. So they have really sat me down and explained and analyzed my entire behavior, the way I responded to things, threadbare, and said that, you were really afraid to answer to that person. What was the reason? You asked a question and then you kept quiet. You didn't follow it up. What was the reason? So they started noticing every nuance in the way I responded, I spoke, and they started analyzing this and telling me. And that is when I realized that, uh, feedback can be that critical, can be that detailed, and it is actually really helpful. Now, especially being in a leadership position, feedback is more critical. I receive feedback from my colleagues, my leadership colleagues, who give me feedback on a lot of things. One of the areas for me as development is conflict management. I am always a person, and you know me, Vinodji, quite well. But for the listeners, I am a person who will be a bit afraid to take a head-on conflict, lest the relationship gets spoiled or the trust with the person gets spoiled. But in certain situations, you still have to take that call, still to take that conflict, because that is very important for your growth, because that is something that you're uncomfortable with. That is something you're difficult to bring it on the table and take a head-on conflict with the person, not with the individual per se, but with their ideas. So those things have really, and they continue to shape me. So positive feedback, the way I look at it is that it re-emphasizes my strength. If somebody says you are doing this very well, you're good at this, it adds to your point, okay, fine. I assumed this to be my strength. So it does seem to be my strength. Or I did not think about this. Probably this is my strength area. So that it helps you analyze it that way. All my constructive feedbacks or feedbacks of improvement, they tell me what are the things I need to be aware about. Not all of them I can work on because certain things are part of my nature. So that's how I'll be. I'll not be able to make a 180-degree shift. But at least I can be conscious enough to not allow that overshadow my strengths and turn the whole table around. In some cases, I might have to work on it more consciously to really make a 180-degree shift to the extent the shift is possible. So feedback to me is I actively ask feedback from whoever it is. I want feedback. So after every interaction, engagement, at a regular interval, I make it a point to consciously ask them, what is it that you like? What is it that you feel should get improved? And that has been one of my major sources of improvement for me as an individual and as a leader.
Beautiful. I think this is something which all of us need to embrace. One area that is good and one area where I need to improve. I truly loved it. And I could hear from you right now. You're already heading a big team. So you could see a lot of leaders, a lot of leadership styles. What is the one burning question you would like to address in that leadership area?
There have been a few areas in my head as far as leadership is concerned. One thing has been that in general, I have not been, that is, or probably the ratio has been decreasing, is of leaders who can really inspire. I've seen a lot of leaders who are very good in managing things, right? What you might call as transactional leadership. A leader who delivers results, achieves outcomes for the organization and general. That to me is fine, good. But to me, leadership is about followership. Leadership is about inspiration, role modeling. It's, leadership is about when I see that leader, I should want to be that person, this kind of a person. That is something that I have always found to be a bit of a want, a gap. Not too many leaders are getting developed that way or wanting to be developed that way. Even though they have the potential, a lot of them have potential. Probably that is not even their end goal to say they don't see that as their goal of being a good leader. That to me is a very critical aspect. Related to that itself is leaders who can stand for people. In my leadership circles, that if you cannot stand for your team or your organization or whatever it is, if you cannot stand for them and put your neck on the line and say that, fine, that to me is not a mark of a great leader. And, in the recent times, the best example we have heard multiple things is of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the famous incident he, speaks of it, many places he has spoken. Right. That is something that always comes to my mind whenever I think of this, especially this area of leadership, to say that that is generates automatic inspiration, followership, and all of that when you are really taking that accountability and you are standing for your people. That to me has become lesser in today's world where things have become a bit more transactional, short term, short lived. I feel that is probably an area wanting within leadership.
I mean, I truly resonate to all your points, whether it is academics, industry, politics. We rarely think about instrumental version. Like, how can I inspire others in my absence? And one or two insights from your 20 year of experience to youngsters, what they can probably pursue. For example, let's speak on internship because you have done internship in one of the finest consulting firm in the world, to be honest. So, what a grad or postgraduate mindset should be? One, to go and get, once I secure, what all things I need to focus on? Some baby tips because you have done it and we could see your growth.
Yeah, each person's aspiration is very different. Coming to that aspiration itself might take time because very few people have that extreme clarity early in their life. Most people discover it over a period of time, which is perfectly fine because over time is when they understand themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, their areas that they can contribute, and that soon leads to where they want to go. The point is, whatever we do, whether it be job or it be an academic degree or it be a training or anything, the question is it to where you want to go, right? Is it contributing to where you want to go or is it distracting from where you want to go? One thing that I've found is that going by popular choice, especially in today's world, is not necessarily the best answer. You need not go by popular choice. Popular choice is probably not always the right answer. In many cases, definitely not the right answer. So the question is that some thought process into saying that how do I want to get there? And is what I'm trying to do going to help me get somewhere? That a bit of thought process is necessary. I see many people, even youngsters, optimizing for other things, like, for example, optimizing for the money, optimizing for, what instant popularity they might get, right? To me, these things, thinking of these things early in life is probably a handicap. It lands you in a problematic space. After a point, you will not know what to do because the moment you start optimizing for money and optimizing for popularity, after 3, 4 years, you will realize that money will keep growing. You will keep getting more and more money. But after 3, 4 years, if you realize that your passion is gone in that space, then you don't know what to do, right? You are stuck in a space where your head will say that you cannot return back because your financial opportunity loss is too high for you to go back. And your heart will say that no, go back because this is not what you like. You will be stuck and then you will have to stay there forever. So that then you do a compromise, right? Then you do whatever you have to compromise and then you live the rest of your life. So that can always be possible. But if you want to really explore yourself and really understand things, initial years are the best. Do that initial, churning in your head to say that what is it that you want to do. Choose professions that will still give you flexibility. The one thing that I always stress on, G, is flexibility in life. I always tell that don't get stuck to anything. Even if you are in a job, and this I've told in every job of mine, right? Whenever I advise my mentees, I tell them that, see, I am not going to convince you to stay in the organization. That is not my job. My job is to tell you what is good for you. So whenever I've seen some of my colleagues and mentees seeing that they have exhausted their, the potential of growth in that organization, I tell them, go out. Maybe this organization is not right for you. Optimizing for individual growth means you have to be flexible. You need to create that agility in your head and in your life. Having minimum liabilities that will get you stuck in a particular place and pin you down to a particular thing in your mind, not getting stuck to certain parameters like money or all those kind of things early in life, so that agility will come over time. As you do 10 years or 15 years of your industry experience, then you will realize that, okay, now probably I know where I'm going. Now let me start putting all my energies behind that engine and start going behind it. So that would be my only suggestion to people, is to keep their head completely agile and flexible until they are very clear where they want to go. That flexibility to me, especially to me, is very, very important. I cannot get stuck to one thing and say that no, you have to stay this for life. That doesn't work for me.
I truly appreciate your point because most of us, even if you talk to people, very few only will accept it. Is either I am on high debt burden that I can't move out. I don't want this job. I hate this job, but I am surrounded with EMIs. So I have no choice. Second, as you rightly pointed out, the opportunity cost is too high. So it is uncomparable or unbearable. So I think one of the beautiful advice to all future entrepreneurs is flexibility is a masterpiece. And last question before we say tata bye bye for the day is, since you have gone through different, I mean, I could appreciate your consistency, to be very honest. Like 3 organizations started and then moved up the ladder, then you moved for a very clear career path. So there were internal clarity in you, which is God's gift. Thank you. Majority people are confused. What is good for me? What should I do? As a mentor or advisor for a lot of B schools as well as organizations, any suggestions? What is your roadmap which you would like to put across from your leadership perspective, from Shankara Bhashyam's perspective? One or two master cuts as to how I can remain happy.
That's the basic question, you asked the real basis, the essence of it. So it is definitely not that, whenever I have made choices, it's been an easy choice. You always go through that phase where you start with a bit of a dilemma. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Is it worth doing? All those things you go through. But what I look for when I do these things, this is bringing a bit of my nature into that whole perspective, which is probably a lot with how Indic perspective also looks at it. One thing is that priorities in life, have to be clear to people over a period of time as to what is priority for me. What am I optimizing for? Because each person's life is different. Right? They could be optimizing for very different things. So those conditions are first of all very important. That clarity over those conditions are very, very important to say that is geographical location an important consideration? Is movement, mobility an important consideration, not an important consideration? Is moving to a particular place an important thing, not an important thing? All these things are very important. But so having those considerations first, the other thing that I look for, especially when you said about, let's say, for example, movement from McKinsey to Siemens and then Siemens twins, etc. Many times, like, so here, because you mentioned Shankarabashi, maybe let me take one place from that is the beauty of Shankara's approaches or the beauty of the approach of Vedanta is to understand what it is not. Because Shankara says what it is very, but what it is not is the problem. So the Neti Neti philosophy, that is what I generally believe is much easier to say that what is it that you don't want, right? What are the things? So even when you're making the shift, be very clear of what is it that if you're making a shift from company A to company B, what aspect of company A was not something that catered to you or something that really struck a chord with you or something that you were not happy with. And that is something that you want to really see if there can be a better position or a better proposition that you can have in a newer company. Similarly, what kind of areas do you really want to look for as you're moving from one company to another? The focus areas of different organizations are different. So what is it that matters to you most? More than anything else, what does the organization stand for? Like, for example, I remember when I shifted from Siemens to Cummins. Now, Siemens was at that time, of course, it's one of the biggest electronics manufacturing organizations working on the most leading technologies of the day. At that time, when I had got this opportunity with Cummins, Cummins was, 100 plus diesel engine manufacturer company and everything. So many people were asking that, why are you shifting, from an electrical electronics technologies company into a diesel manufacturing company? What is it that is? But my point was that that was not my consideration to say that whether the company is manufacturing diesel engines or is it manufacturing the gold mining equipment. That was not my point. My point was, what is this company standing for? What is this company doing? How is this company behaving with its employees? To me, that is very critical as I make a shift. I have certain basic criteria of what the company should be doing. It is in the industrial space, it is in an engineering space, so that I can understand what the company is doing. If it is too much of futures and derivatives and options, I cannot understand that space at all. Everything that is floating of in plastic money, I may not be able to understand. So I need something tangible to hold in my hand and say, this is the factory, this is what comes out for to me to understand the business. So that is clear. They have factories, they have, all those things were clear. So to me, from a basic understanding, the organization is fine. Now the question is that how is the organization really coming across to its people, to its employees, the various policies of the organization? When I interact with the leaders of the organization, what kind of a feeling am I getting? What kind of an experience or a vibe am I really experiencing in that half an hour or 1 hour? These things matter to me a lot, because that to me is like, okay, I can live with this company. I can stay with this company. So that is very important to me as I make. So what is important to each person has to be very clear. What are my criteria on which I will make the choice? That could be very individualistic to every person, but that once the person is clear about, other things become secondary. You might compromise on a few other things for that particular experience of yours. But I think that is generally the choice that, or generally the approach I take when I move from one to the other. I am very clear on why am I making that choice? What of the previous company am I trying to solve it in my next role or next organization? And what of the next organization is something that is really attracting me or really something that I feel good about?
I mean, one more master stroke you have given is negation theory. Rather than what is there obvious, but what is not there is something we can figure out.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful lesson. I truly appreciate you on that. Thank you for supporting and connecting with us. Looking forward to more such interactions. And I wish all the best. I am eagerly waiting for to invite Dr. Subramaniam soon. It's not far away, don't worry. As you rightly pointed out, the mediocrity is okay. Jitna bhi doctors say, "Uchchal on le lo." You have the potential, the talent, and the metal. So I wish insights from your leadership circles be flown. We also require some strong inspirational leaders for 2047 to be a reality. Absolutely. I think your thesis will add a lot of insights to it. So, any closing comments from your end?
So first of all, thanks a lot, Noji, for this opportunity. It's always an area I love talking about, interacting with people on, because I get to learn also what they are thinking and how they're perceiving, because it's a very subjective space. There is no right or wrong answer to this. It is just how people think, and that itself becomes the more a matter of motivation and inspiration for you to think differently. And as you said, yes, I'm also eagerly waiting for my doctor to.
Yeah. Looking forward to meet in future interactions as well as different platforms too. Thanking you. My regards to your family. Stay safe. Take care. We'll surely catch up soon.
Thanks a lot, Vinoji. Thank you.